So what if Disney acquired Games Workshop? Yes, this is not a clickbait title. This was a question we were kind of kicking around the other day as 40K enthusiasts and as Star Wars enthusiasts. And certainly, I'm a 40K enthusiast. I'm kind of half and half with Star Wars. And it's interesting, the friends that I run with, my enthusiasm for 40K is matched by their enthusiasm for Star Wars. And it's interesting when we play X-Wing miniatures. One of the reasons why I jumped into X-Wing miniatures and still enjoy it is awesome miniatures, quick gameplay. I don't have to paint them. They look fantastic. So that right away frees up a lot of time. And I understand the Star Wars universe. I enjoy the Star Wars universe. But I'm willing to play competitively and kind of bend the rules in terms of factions and what normally happens, where my other friends run certain lists and certain combos where they're like, it has to be in-game narrative. It has to match. So I kind of drive them nuts because I don't have that investment. But likewise, when you jump over to 40K and you mess with my perception of the Grimdark, well, I understand that. And one of the things we were talking about, agree or disagree, Obi-Wan is out. We've got Mando. We've got Boba Fett. I mean, these are aspects of Star Wars. Now, whether it took a streaming platform to do that or the acquisition of Disney, for that to happen, that's really, really amazing. And it's opened up a lot of possibilities for the Star Wars narrative, the Star Wars universe, other than, here's a movie we're going to throw at you every now and then. It's grown and it's expanded. And I think that also feeds into the toys, into the games, into the books and the narrative. It really keeps it moving. I mean, we're entering into this new digital media, and the more Star Wars we get, the better. Now, we've seen Games Workshop try to grapple with that. They have a physical product, miniatures. They also have an amazing, rightly so, IP, which they do their utmost to protect, and they have to certainly do that. But ultimately, the duality I see working against them is the market and just how many new players can you attract. Eventually, you're going to need to branch out. If the goal, and their goal is to make money, you need multiple and more revenue streams. And we've seen this now, we're a year in with Warhammer Plus, and how that kind of was successful in some areas and not so successful in other areas. But ultimately what we see is Games Workshop becomes more bloated and attracts more and more revenue and profit. Eventually, they're going to be acquired by someone. Someone's going to have the capital, and they're going to acquire it. Look at Fantasy Flight Games. That's my counter. I mean, we still get all the tokens and the expansions, and you need a dozen or so sleeves for the cards to play the game. But when they got acquired, how they transformed and dumped all their own, or most of their own, kind of got Descent 3.0. I know it's not Descent 3.0, but it is Descent 3.0. But Runebound, Terranoth, Battlelore, kind of all those in-house titles just have quietly been phased out, for the support of kind of licensing things out. I mean, that's the nature of acquisition, to hyper-focus it and take it to that next level. So if all of a sudden someone like Disney bought out Games Workshop, and now 40K goes from this boutique-type miniatures-based game, and now serious cash into toys, into, models, but different types of models, into media, into movies, into streaming, could it happen? Fritz, 40K is too serious. It's too grimdark. It's too brutal. What? The Star Wars universe? Have you taken a look at the Star Wars universe? I mean, there's genocide everywhere, and that's before the Empire. It's crazy, the level of violence in the Star Wars universe. It's just been absolutely, A, justified. Well, the Imperium justifies everything. Or B, completely sanitized. Well, the tabletop experience is often and totally sanitized. So from that perspective, I mean, you really got to dive into the Black Library books and some of the obscure stuff when you're like, wait, this is pretty crazy. This is pretty out there with the scale. So I'm not saying kind of baby cakes 40K, but they could certainly make it more mainstream and make it sci-fi mainstream. And with that infusion of cash building on an already popular base, but ultimately the IP, Now, I was going to make a reference between Star Wars and Star Trek, but I have friends on both sides of the coin, and I'm an enthusiast for both of those kind of areas. B5 also. Absolutely. We need a B5. We don't even need a reboot. We just need to continue B5 with the current cast. We need to reboot B5, and I never got it on the tabletop miniature game. We need that to happen, but that is an absolute side story. But from that perspective, if we look, 40K taken to that next level with that infusion, it could very well happen. Now, when it will happen, would it happen? I don't know. Games Workshop has a long way to go. But what they do have, much like Star Wars, Star Trek, and other elements, they have developed an IP as wacky as it is. Wait, I've got space elves with space magic and undead space robots and space Romans, and I've got these orcs, but they're not called orcs because we trademarked them, and there's tanks, but there's also big demons running around, and there's war robots. Then there's this guy called Horus, like all this crazy stuff, and I don't know, chaos and demons, but there is no religion, but the emperor is a god. All this wacky stuff, it has all been cobbled together, and it has a narrative, and it has an appeal, bolt, pistol, and chainsword, that is up there with Star Wars, is up there with Star Trek. So I could see someone looking and saying, let's take this to the next level. Let's acquire it. And then I think at that point, Games Workshop ultimately pivots, and it's no longer a games company or a model company. We might still have 40K to play, but at that point, it completely changes over to a media type company. Star Wars as sci-fi, it's media now. It's media on all levels. So at what point do you think that would happen, and would that be a good thing for 40K? And by extension, AOS and other type of game systems. Hey, we might finally get a balanced rule set, and we might finally get support, regular support for all the models, and lack of limited release. All those things we're griping about with GW, maybe actually a fan community that is supported. I don't know. Is that wish listing? But I'll turn it over to you guys. In all seriousness, what if GW was acquired and had a massive, massive influx of money, a massive war chest? Would that be good for the community? Would that be good for the grimdark? Would that be good for the narrative? Or would it just be a slow crash and burn, and 40K would not recognize or be the 40K that we love and that we recognize?